Hello and welcome. I'm sorry we're getting started a couple minutes late. I am here with Dr. Sharon Jones, and she's going to be talking about closing the gender gap in computer science with a supportive algorithm. And this is where I'm going to let our wonderful speaker, Dr. Sharon Jones, introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thank everyone for being here. I was looking at the live chat and I saw a couple of people pop up from North Carolina. And so, shout out to my fellow North Carolinians. I am from Charlotte, North Carolina, so I'm excited. This is really cool, Jen, to see all the live chat where everyone is from. I'm loving this. This is so fantastic, and I'm really, really honored that everyone has joined today. So, as she mentioned, my name is Sharon, Dr. Sharon Jones, and I am the founder and CEO of the Dot Consulting and the nonprofit group Dottie Rose Foundation. And my organizations are actually named in honor of my grandmother. And everything is focused around implementing and having some joy in computer science. I've been teaching computer science for about 20 years now. I can officially put that 20-year mark now because I've bridged over that wonderful age of 40. And what I have learned over my years of teaching is really thinking thoughtfully about how we look and how we take computer science and integrate it into not only our as a segmented piece, but integrate it into our curriculum. And so most of my work has been working in K-12 schools to help teachers feel confident about talking about computer science and technology. And then the nonprofit focuses on middle school girls to help them find their voice in computer science. I have written and been published internationally and nationally, and then I also am a member of the National Small Business Leadership Council, which has really been a great honor because it helps me learn more about what's happening in small business. And then let's see, you can follow me on Twitter at Dottie Rose LLC. So thank you so much for having me, and we will jump right into our conversation. So what we're going to take a look at today, and I would love to hear questions as we're humming along. So today we're going to talk a little bit about closing that gender gap and with computer science. And the reason why we use the word supportive algorithm is one of my favorite words in all of the world. But it also is the process of how we get from point A to point B. It's a process of steps you take to solve a problem or like I said, to get from one place to another. So what we want to think about today is, what is this gender gap? Why is it happening? And how can we help take steps to begin to close it? And a lot of work has happened over the past few years to begin to move the pendulum in this conversation, but we still have work to do. So let's start with a little bit of history so we can give a framework around what we're talking about. Back in the 60s, women really made up much of the computer technology workforce. If you've watched any of the movies like Hidden Figures, or if you've seen some of the old movies that deal with the military or whatnot, there are a lot of women that are represented in driving the field around computer science and technology. The picture that you see there is actually a picture of Grace Hopper, who is one of the icons in the computer science world. She's also attributed with creating one of the first computer programs that created a compiler where you were able to write a program that could be dispersed to more than one computer. If you'll notice in that image, it was many years ago that the computer was actually the size of a room. And so that took a lot of time, manpower, and energy in order to run it. But in the 60s, there were a lot of females that were there help driving those decisions. Grace Hopper, in particular, was an admiral in the Navy. And when the internet was first put into place, it was driven and developed by the military back in the 50s and 60s. And so she had a front row seat to help develop and be part of that conversation. She was considered a computer programmer. We can also date this back even further to the 1800s to who was considered the first programmer is Ada Lovelace, where she developed a program to help mathematically calculate her calculations faster. So that's just a little bit of a tidbit of like where we were. But by 1970, what began to happen is the women in the field began to drop. As you can see, they only accounted for 13.6 of the bachelor's degrees in computer science. And in 1984, that number rose a little bit and then dropped again by the time we hit the end of the 80s. And the research shows that a lot of that is attributed to the development and disbursement of a personal computer. And, here nor there of what that means, but there's been quite a bit of research around this concept of when the personal computer was developed and began to be marketed, it was marketed more towards boys than it was girls. And there began to be a cultural message that computers were meant for boys or boys and dads and not necessarily for girls. Some of that had to do with the way that the games were put on the personal computer, et cetera, and also the way toys began to be marketed in the late 70s and 80s for boy toys and girl toys. And if you can remember that, especially I was born in the 80s, I can recall very clearly commercials that had things that appeared to be very targeted to me versus targeted to my brother. So that's a little bit of the history to give some framework around. There was a time when women drove a lot of what was happening with computers, and then over time that has changed. And quite frankly, it's continuing to decline. And actually, there are more women coming into the field, but we're also not retaining them in a manner that is great. And part of that, I think, comes back to their perception of what they think they can or cannot do in the field. So let's talk a little bit about some of the research. I'm going to talk for the next few minutes just about research and the mindset around girls. So remember, the core piece of our talk today is talking about closing the gender gap. And at the current moment, women only make up about 32% of the technology field, but there are over 70% of the field is open for jobs right now, which is insane, right? Technology is like there are just jobs everywhere that could be filled. Now, here's the research. Although many girls express interest in science during their elementary school year, they have increasingly negative views of science classes, and math and science-based careers as they progress through middle and high school. Just let that kind of mull over in your brain. They decide whether or not to seriously pursue the study of math and sciences during their middle school years. Now, think about that. Think about what's happening to them during the middle school time. And their confidence in their abilities to succeed in math and science drop during middle school. This is really an end. There's been quite a bit of research done, and a lot of it has been with interviews and also with some test scores, but a lot of qualitative interviews with young women to ask these questions. Think about the age of elementary to middle school. If you can kind of get the ages in your brain here, a young lady enters into fifth grade, usually by the time they're 10 or 11, and they're entering the eighth grade in between the ages of 13 and 14, depending kind of on where their birthday lies, et cetera. So we've got this framework or this block of time between a young lady being in the fifth grade, getting ready to step into middle school, and then this time frame between eighth grade and the time they're getting ready to step into high school. It's a very pivotal time in their life. It's also probably the most difficult time when you're working with kids because there's so many different things that are happening to a young person between the ages of 11 and 13. We've all been there, we know. But this is why it's also so important. It's so important that we have this conversation and that we are aware that their confidence in what's happening during the middle school time. Okay, so here's a couple other things based on research. We've identified a variety of factors that can contribute to a girl's low enrollment in computer science. Now, let me also kind of back this up a little bit. There's some misconceptions too around what is computer science, STEM, STEAM, technology. All right. So let's think a little bit about this. Computer science is a field. It is a field that is composed of the hardware and software of computers and the infrastructure part. So what I mean by that is we can almost theoretically classify many of our objects like a phone or your Fitbit or any of those as a computer because they hold a chip that holds all that information. So computer science is the study of computer systems, their algorithmic processes, software and hardware. Now what that means is that's an incomplete discipline that is looking at how do we use computers or computer objects to solve problems. How do we use, if we have a problem, how do we use that in order to use technology to help us do something or solve a problem? I say that because sometimes that gets confused with the acronym of STEM. STEM is an acronym: science, technology, engineering, you can say STEAM, arts, and mathematics. The reason why STEM was put into place was to bring to the forefront that we were not excelling in letting young people know that there is an integration between science, math, and tech, which ultimately is the first step in feeding into the bigger conversation around computer science. So, STEM, while it's great, it really isn't, it's an acronym, and it's really bringing to highlight the integration of science and math, engineering, and technology together. And as they come together, they create the field computer science. And that's what that is. So I roll with any of those things, but just kind of giving you an overview about what those are. Okay. So when we say that, sometimes I can say the word computer science and or STEM, and people are like, whoa, right? But y'all, we are computer scientists. We are the reason why technology exists because we want it to do something to help us. I mean, think about the glory of Alexis and Google Home, or Alexa, not Alexis, Alexa. I mean, I don't know what I would do without the fact of asking Alexa what the weather is like in the morning. It's fantastic, right? I love the fact that GPS exists. Gracious me, remember the days of MapQuest? Holy bejesus. I mean, come on. So, the thinking about that is these are some of the factors that happen to young women during that age time in particular. Remember, we mentioned that a lot of this occurs between that end of the elementary and into their middle school years. There's a disinterest in computers. And, this one, I'm going to push back a little bit on this because I don't know that technically I want to say that it might just be a disinterest in understanding or having a passion for wanting to tinker with a computer or a technological device. I think they're actually interested in computers, maybe just not the hardware side. Maybe that's what it is. Concerns around the computing culture. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in just a little bit, but if you can think about this, what is your own perception of what computing culture is? Is it of a person? Usually it's a male sitting somewhere in a dark room with a hoodie on, typing on a computer with a black and green screen. There that has happened over the years. Movies have shown that. Tech nerds doing X, Y, or Z. There's lack of encouragement from peers, parents, and educators. This happens a lot, and this is not a blame. It is a fact that sometimes we don't push our girls into math or science because we think it's more of a boy thing, and relatively fewer opportunities to interact with computers. And that comes back to a lot of the opportunities that are presented. And this really goes across the board. This is not just a factor of women, but middle school often tends not to offer enough opportunities for kids to be able to have opportunity in technology. And some of that, there's we could go on about why that is. Some of it has to do with testing. Some of it has to do with concept that there's a bit of an unknown around it, and it changes so fast. So it's hard for states to keep up with standards and et cetera. So that's part of it. Okay, so that's a little bit of, I've got one more about research, and then I promise I will, well, I've got a little more about research. This is my nerdy self. Mm,
Please keep it
um,
coming. I love all this data. This is awesome. And I can definitely tell our audience is they're really connecting with it. It's awesome to
well,
see
good.
both
I
sides
mean,
of it.
I'm a data nerd. I mean, that's my area of love. So, okay, so this is the other piece that I have found is really the heart of where we find why girls don't stick with us in computer science or tech. And it comes back to the concept of belonging. So I'm going to let that be for just a second. I'm pausing because I want you to think about about how that feels as a middle schooler in general and being able to figure out where they belong. It's awkward. If I can tell you about the days of my middle school, I was a hashtag nerd and I struggled to fit in because I loved all the things about school and I loved all the things. And so I'm going to read that piece in bold because the rest of you can read that. But girls' lower sense of belonging could be traced to lower feelings of fit with computer science stereotypes. So if we take the research here back to what I talked about, some of the historical pieces in the 70s and 80s, when we were beginning to differentiate between marketing towards boys or girls, part of that also came from cultural movies, TV shows, things that they would see on billboards, t-shirts, lunch boxes, any of those things that had colors or things that were driven towards a technological stereotype. Now, I'm not blaming anybody for that. That this is not a sense of blame because I think sometimes that comes across that way. Because let's be frank, when personal computers came out, they were kind of ginormous. Like they were big, clunky things. And there were parts about it that we didn't understand. And there was a sense of niche understanding in how to use a computer. If I think back to my years, I liked computers. I didn't really know what I was going to do with them, but I did love me some Oregon Trail. Bring the Oregon Trail, which by the way is out. There's like a reboot of the Oregon Trail. You just need to Google it, play it. That is a great way to implement computational thinking and computer science in your classroom by just having people figure out the problem of getting from one side of the of the world of United States to the other. Anyway, so I know Oregon Trail, right? Whoop whoop. It just makes my life so happy. Mm. So anyway, but I want you to think about that in terms of how females fit or what they think or what you may think a stereotype is for someone who is a computer scientist. I'm here to tell you I am a computer scientist and I don't sit behind a computer and code all day long. I code a bit and I can run some data like nobody's business, but I am a computer scientist and I'm very proud of that. Did not start off that way. I thought I was going to be a radio DJ back in the day, and I still am in some capacity. But this is my job now. I love what I do in exploring data and all the things around the field. Okay, so how do we begin to solve the problem? And I'm going to talk about that and interchange a little bit of research with that as well. And when I say solve the problem, it's what steps do we take? What can we do to help change this conversation and bring some encouragement and belonging back to our girls? Yeah, Hattie Robinson said they were considered geeks. Yeah, you know what? And for a long time, that wasn't cool. Now we're entering a phase where it's cool to be different, right? For a while when we were growing up, I mean, if you were a geek, that what it was like the geeks and the popular, there was all these stereotypes. It's not one thing I think that has happened that's a blessing is that over time that's not so much the issue. We're beginning to embrace difference, which is amazing. So here's a couple of things that I have found that really work. And this is one of the slides of how we can start solving the problem. And what I have done in my work over my 2 decades of teaching. As I mentioned to you before, I've taught computer science for 20 years. The better part of my career was in high school, and I was teaching 9th, 10th, and 11th graders visualbasic.net. Y'all excited about that one yet? Woo! Right? So visualbasic.net is an object-oriented programming language. And let me tell you, while it's an amazing language, and many of our banking platforms were built off of it, holy moly, it is kind of boring, right? So How do we get a ninth grader excited about adding a variable and a function and all those things to create something? We have to make it approachable. We've got to find a way to meet them, give them the knowledge, and then also make it approachable. This is no different than anything we do when we're teaching in our regular in English or history or math. We have to make it so that the kids can find their place in it. They're 10, 11, 12, 13-year olds. Their brains aren't fully developed yet. So sometimes you got to meet them where they are. If it's the tick to the talk, if it's a little bit of Snapchat, if it's the Marco Polo, I don't understand half of these things. I don't TikTok. I can't just add that to my life, so I don't. But there's whatever that looks like for them helps make it approachable. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. How do we redefine the field? And that comes from the conversation that we have as adults to the young people. Our conversation needs to tell them that, yes, you can do this. Your ability and your perceived ability are two different pieces. Females, there's the research shows that females perceive themselves as not as good at computers as boys, but that's absolutely untrue. As you approach this, you just have to think about, yes, I can do this. The one kind of wall we tend to run into is sometimes it's not instantaneous. Learning how to use a computer or start to program takes some time. And sometimes that is often the reason. But we want to talk about their abilities to accomplish, not their perceived. We need for them to overcome that perceived. And the other piece that works beautifully is having mentorship programs. They need to see it to be it. So a wonderful mentor of mine told me that, and that's exactly the truth. In order for them to understand that there is this opportunities, they need to see it. And let me also make this clear. Everybody's occupation at this point involves technology and some level of computer science. I mean, just being on this webinar right now, we are utilizing an incredible software design, someone who's developed the front end of this webinar for a UX UI design, to someone that has developed the program on the back end that allows us to have video and audio and file share and all those things. Everything that we touch at this point involves computer science and or technology. So creating mentorship programs around technological concept, science, math is actually pretty simple because everyone uses it. So those are a couple of things, and I'm going to talk a little about how to do those as we go through. I'm keeping my eye on time, Jen, because I know we want to keep some time for questions. So this is the way we do it. All right. The way that I have begun to break down, how do we begin to make it approachable? How to redefine the field? How do we start to create mentorships? I take the field of computer science and I've broken it down into 4 buckets. While none of these buckets are siloed, these buckets help give a step forward in the right direction to say, hey, you know what? I'm really good at that. I can help in that field. Okay. So the programming bucket clearly is programming a computer, coding, working with algorithms to create very efficient software. Your digital bucket are all those individuals that are creating the user interface, the user experience, creating the front end of websites, those that are creating graphic design, all your social media graphics, and understanding the SEO, understanding the marketing techniques. Now that goes hand in hand with our data bucket. Everything we do involves data. We're collecting data right now. How many attendees? How many questions? What questions are people asking? What are the patterns that we're seeing in the questions that people are asking? What worked best when we marketed this particular talk? Where do we get people from? Was it LinkedIn? Was it Instagram? All of those things are data. Data drives decisions. If you like data, you can you can do anything because the information is so powerful. And the last piece is infrastructure. And infrastructure is all the hardware pieces, the things that are the actual physical products of technology. Your phone, your watch, your earbuds. By the way, These are probably one of the best inventions ever. I love these darn things. Um, your little gadgets and like I have a MacBook, so I have to have an add-on for my USB drives. Infrastructure that also includes things like cybersecurity and networking. How do we set up the entire infrastructure of the technology that we're using? Now, what I want you to think about is these four buckets, as I mentioned, are not siloed, but can we think of ways to engage young women based on these buckets? Do girls like X, Y, or Z? And so let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. Here's those four buckets broken down into just plain English. Do you like logic and sequence? Are you somebody that loves a good list? Whoop, whoop, me, right? If you like things to move and check your little boxes and all those kinds of things, if you are really good at writing, you are an excellent programmer. That's logic and sequence. If you can write a line in English or a sentence in English, you can nail a line of code. It's the same process. It's just the language that you're telling the computer versus the language you're telling a human. If you love numbers, okay, so I say this often. I'm a data scientist, I'm a computer scientist. I do not develop websites, nor do I develop apps. Y'all, I'm really kind of bad at it. I mean, I can program, but it's just like I kind of struggle with it. Like it's not my jam. But I love data. And I found that I could figure out how to program in data using SQL, which is a Microsoft product. I also use something called SAS, which is a very powerful data analytics software. And like I soared. I love statistics. It was so, I mean, I hated math. I thought I did anyway for a long period of time until I took stats. And I'm like, oh, wow, that has to equal, it was like amazing. So if you like numbers and you kind of have this little drive to use numbers to help make decisions, that's a data person. You can take that data person and marry it with somebody who's a visual person. That visual person who loves to paint, draw, loves all the things with music, likes to do radio, any of those things. That's digital. Finding that sync in the digital bucket, right? So a lot of individuals that are really great artists make incredible graphic designers. So I will just so you know, this particular presentation, I wish you could have seen it all of about 24 hours ago. Not delightful at all. But I have this incredible human that works with me who is beautifully visually engaged. And she went back in and like in 10 minutes had this sucker looking fantastic. That's not me. I know the content, but she's got that visual piece. I know the numbers, right? And then the last piece is if you like to tinker, if you find yourself like taking things apart and putting them back together, if you're like, oh man, wonder how that works, right? You're great at being an engineer. You're great at working in that infrastructure piece. And then you can marry that with any of the other pieces in your buckets, right? It doesn't mean that just because you choose one bucket, you can't do all of them. I mean, we're all very complex humans, right? But this helps to give a little bit of a starting point. Where would you like to start? Where do you find, where does your heart go pitter patter? And the same thing happens with girls. So the work that I've done over the years is I've taken those four buckets and I've created a platform through my nonprofit and through the work that I do in the school system to say, okay, everybody, what do we have and what can we do to bring the kids to make it more approachable, to start redefining the field and providing opportunities for girls to meet others that are doing the same thing. So you can see here, like we had them go to UNCC, which is a local university here in Charlotte, and see their makerspace. This is one of my favorite humans, Ava Louise, who hated to code, and now she's one of my top coders. And all we did was show her, because she likes a good structure, right? She likes to move things around, right? This is showing them how we married digital with infrastructure, where they were building their own app. And this one's actually using a little bit of augmented reality. This one, they built their own computers. They built, because it was so cool. It was a visual piece where they had to follow instructions and figure out what to do. They built their own, what's called a Piper computer. Down here is them learning how to program on 3D printing. 3D printing is a really great piece to talk about because it's not super coding heavy. but it uses engineering design and visual. But there is an element of mathematics of them learning the X, Y, and Z coordinates. And then the bottom one, of course, is art, because everything starts with us being able to have a visual representation. So we teach them how you use color when you paint, and then how do you take that same piece and create that same color image in a digital form. So here's what I want you to start thinking about. When I was talking about solving the problem, making it approachable, thinking about the buckets, thinking about where you thrive, because if you thrive in it, it makes it easier to share it with the kids. Makes it easier for us to say to them, you can do this. I promise you, they figure things out way faster than we do. I used to be scared to death of breaking a computer. These children are like, what apps, right? So like their level of like, we can figure this out. You know, it used to be a home computer cost thousands of dollars. Right now, I mean, not that it's cheap, but my point is that it's more accessible, right? So they're not as scared to break things. So I'm going to come back to that point about solving the problem, providing an environment that does not fit the current stereotype, helps them find a way to solve real world problems. Girls and women like to solve problems that are going to help people. It's part of our nature. It's just men live in, what is it? Women on Mars, men on Venus, or whatever it is. So that whole kind, I mean, they're innately, we like to help others, and not that boys don't. It's just a different type of, we like to have that. And we want to get rid of that geek concept because we all are using tech, right? So creating this environment, and you can think about it basing on the buckets. Do one piece. You don't have to open Pandora's box. You can just start with one thing. So monitoring that and giving them an opportunity to solve something with a real world application. What's happening in your community right now? Pandemic. Oh my goodness, the storm that just occurred. How can we think about helping to create an innovation that could help somebody that lives in a hurricane zone? There's so many amazing things that you can attribute it to. So here's a couple of quick wins that I recommend. One thing I learned many years ago in my admin certification, yes, I am a hashtag nerd, academic, teacher, educator to the hardcore. I think I have a lot of degrees. Told you I really enjoy a good little data mint. But nonetheless, one of the things that stuck with me so clearly when I was going through my admin program was we have to have quick wins. We have to have a little something that's going to give a giddy up and pick us up a little bit, right? One thing I want to start saying is start sharing that computing is social. We are engaging in technology right now. It's social. It's a way to have conversation. At the core of everything you do in STEM or that leads into computer science is collaborative. If Jen and I said, you know what, man, we really would love to create something with CoderZ's that blah, 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 whatever it is. She has an idea, I have an idea, and together we're going to collaborate to think of something that's going to move that to the next level. Help bridge the confidence for girls. Tell them they are great. Just because they test it better on a literacy test than a math test does not mean that they are better at literacy than math. Literacy lends itself to be a better multiple choice test than math does, and it always will. Tell them they're great at it. Encourage them to take that math class. Just say, hey, take it. What happens if you do bad in it? I don't know. Put you in a different one. Try it. Make computing relevant. And all we have to do is think about what you're doing in your everyday life. How do we make that so that students have access? Provide diverse role models. And how you do that is first start looking in your network and your community. Who is doing something in your community that is there somebody who's a DJ? Is there somebody who's a chef? Is there somebody that is an artist? Any of those people, to show them, hey, you know what? Almost every artist that I know has a website. How did that happen? Because they need to be able to share their work, right? Almost every DJ I know uses some type of computer software to actually make their music, right? Bringing people in and it's just as simple as asking someone in your network, hey, would you mind speaking to my students or to people in my group? I guarantee you they're going to say yes. I don't know that I've ever had anybody tell me no. They've only said, I can't do it that day, but can I do it this day? Yes. And then show the real world problems. What is being solved right now with technology? Oh, I love that. Bridget just said, my daughter hates math, but she jammed in stats. Yes, me too. Me too. I thought algebra was ridiculous. It's not really. But at the time I did. But when I found stats, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can use math for a purpose. It made sense in my brain. So those are some quick wins that I would recommend. Just think about how you can take one step. Tell a young woman she's amazing at math. The thing that I hate the most, and I am going to say hate, I don't use that word lightly. When I'm working with my young ladies, if the first statement that comes out of their mouth is, I'm not good at math, I literally stop and say, we're going to rephrase that question. I may not be good at math yet, or maybe I just haven't found the right math that works for me. Right? Listen, I'm not good at English. Listen, child, if you can text and understand how to do that shorthand that you do, I've never seen people text so darn fast on a cell phone. You're all right. Yeah, you're all right. We're just going to figure out how we're going to make this work. Right? It's okay. That we have to give them the confidence to do it. All right. So a couple things one of the things I just put out recently is I did a journal called an innovation journal to reignite your spark. I mentioned to you before, I'm adamant that you talk to your community. In this journal, I write down, you take each of your units and work backwards. What are some of the key components that make it so that you are able to start thinking about integrating computer science into your work? And really all this is thinking about people that are in your life, technology that you're using, and helping to realize what's right there at your fingertips that you can start relating. I spoke a little bit earlier about this, but I run, in addition to the work that I do in the schools, I run a nonprofit. This Dottie Rose Foundation is named in honor of my grandmother. We support girls in computer science. This is our goal. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I use this regardless of what I'm talking about. How do we empower tech savvy girls? Make it approachable, redefine the field, and think about role models. I take those three pieces and I create this chart. How do we do that? We continue to provide opportunity, to tell them that they're creators, to create cross-curricular content, and create an environment where they can learn. Give them a space to learn and grow and fail. So important. And at the heart of all of that is bringing the community in. We as educators can't do this alone, and we need that from our community. And then lastly, this is just if anybody would like to know more about the work that I do in the schools or support a young lady, this is how you can reach out and find out more information about the work that I do in the schools. I think you can tell I'm excited and passionate about it. I am passionate about changing the conversation around what is technology and what is it for a young woman. We have a voice. Our voice should be heard at the table because we also some of the first adopters of all things tech. So thank you all so much for the time. I believe I'm to leave some time for questions, Miss Jen, or I can keep talking.
We do have some questions. We can come back in. We had one, let me pull them back up right here. So we had an attendee who had coached 6 girls in the Sally's Ride Toy Challenge. I believe that's a challenge within NASA.
Oh,
yeah. And they're really wanting to do something like that again, but they're not aware of any concepts. Do you have any recommendations?
You want to do something around the challenge again or be a part of something that's already organized?
It sounds like they want to be a part of another challenge similar, yeah. Either.
So I don't know anything off the top of my head, but what I think you can do is take whatever Sally ride that challenge and just reformulate it to be implemented locally. Just the same concept that you had with them, just implement it locally with people from your area. It was a toy challenge, correct?
Yes.
Is that what he said? Yeah, yeah. Let me think a little bit on that, and let me dig just a bit. I don't know anything off the top of my head, but I do know that there's tons of challenges out there. I just, school's just kicking back off again, so there'll probably more that come out. But I would say, if for you to have control over that, rethink about it and how it can be done locally in your community.
I will say I don't know much personally about the Sally's Ride Toy Challenge. CoderZ does have a CoderZ League that brings in competitions within coding. It's completely virtual.
Yep.
That's also something to check out. I'll send you the link of that at the end if that's something you're interested in. I don't know how those two compare, but I know the CoderZ League is also really awesome challenge as well. So let me find you another one. I've got a list right here. People are very excited.
Oh, good.
So, how do you encourage our high school students to become interested in computer science? Besides, there's times when we tell girls that they're good, or do you have any more specific examples?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. Oh, am I echoing?
No, you sound good.
Okay. All right. So this is actually very near and dear to my heart because I taught high school for so long, and most of those young women that I was able to have the opportunity to work with are now back helping me with the nonprofit. But the first thing I start with is asking them to make a list of some of their favorite things to do. What are their favorite things to do? What is something that have them write down some people in their lives that are really important to them and why? Talk a little bit about and then start to begin to explore those interests. I'm very a big firm believer in informational interviews. So at high school, they are apt enough to be able to begin to talk to people in their family or in their network or other educators and start to ask questions. So the reason why I say that is I always go back to my buckets. And I know that's crazy, but it just is how it fits in my brain. So I have one young woman who came to me and she had no idea. She was in the ninth grade, but she really liked math. She just didn't know what to do with it. And so I ended up putting her in my SAS class, which was all about data analytics. She just finished her master's in computer science and data analytics. And the reason why is we just helped to guide her to where it was the right fit for her. And let me be frank with you, it took us some time. We didn't know, but if they really enjoy art or they really enjoy tinkering or any of those things, starting to think about people that you can connect them with where they can have informational interviews. And the other places, be a safe place they can always come back and ask questions. Bring them an ice cream sandwich and say, let's talk.
That's awesome. That would work for me. So, I mean, I know I'm not a high school girl, but it would have worked for me.
Ice cream sandwiches were my secret trick because I could take them and I'd put them in the freezer at school and they would not melt until I brought them out.
Genius. I'm gonna have to do that just for when I don't want to walk to the kitchen for a snack, just
Mhm.
personally. Okay, we have another one. Is there value to requiring all educators to learn how to code? When is it too late for them?
It's never too late. And yes, I'm biased, but yes, I think every educator, every student, every person should have access to know how to code. And let me explain this to you. That doesn't mean you have to be an expert. It's never too late. I promise you, you are very intelligent humans. We just have to bring this into something you enjoy. So let me explain that. I like data. So I am probably going to like a computer programming language like Python. But if you like design and you like to create, you may like a language like HTML, which is the language of the web, or JavaScript or Java. You might like something called processing, which is where you develop art with code. We just have to you have to start with what you like and where you're going to be successful. If you like gaming, something like C or C sharp is going to be a great place to start. But yes, it's never too late. And yes, I believe every educator should have access and know at least some basics of coding.
I completely agree with that. I'm actually fresh out of the classroom myself. I spent the past 10 years as an educator, actually ESL education. You
Hmm.
made a comment earlier about that. You said if you can write a sentence in English, you can write in code. And that just really stuck with me. I think that connection was awesome. And I knew a little bit of coding, but it's just kind of something that I've enjoyed later in life too. So,
Yeah, well, and you think about these children, like we didn't necessarily have all the accessibility when we
mhm.
were going through school. And I use this comment a lot. I actually did not get my first email address until I went to college. That was in 1998. I didn't have a computer in my house until I was a senior in high school because I had to do my senior exit project, and it was very large. So it's never too late. It's just a matter of finding the right fit.
Absolutely. Let me see. I think we have a couple more here I can finish up. Let me see. Make sure we've already done those. I apologize. Okay. Okay. So we've talked a little bit. I know this presentation's mainly been about gender roles. We do have a question. Do you find that race plays a role in students visualizing themselves in a field or position? Do you have any input on that?
So, yes, I think that the opportunities are important. Yes, I do. The answer is yes. And I think you have to be thoughtful about it. And I think you have to think very strategically and also know that being very, very honest about the opportunities, providing. The other thing is that when it comes down to helping kids, we have to be consistent, consistent, consistent. So sometimes an opportunity might not be right for one kid, but keep presenting different opportunities. Show up, keep having the conversation, and that will change. That will change. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's important, and it's hasn't always been addressed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It looks like that is, let me double check. I don't want to miss anybody's questions, but I think that is the end of our questions. And I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Jones. This was absolutely wonderful. I also love the research part, so I'm sitting here, I've probably had my mouth open a couple times just listening to you in excitement. But this was absolutely wonderful. We can't say thank you enough. Guys, make sure you go follow Dr. Jones on Twitter, and she posts all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm going to do a quick plug for CoderZ because that's where I'm from, and honestly, I really do love it. And if you're looking for something to get your girls started, we have the CoderZ Robotics. You can check out the online virtual program. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned a little bit about the virtual robotics competition. The CoderZ League is also something wonderful to check out. We also have, if you want to just kind of dip your toes in the water and check out some of the coding, CoderZ has partnered with Amazon for a 3 free-hour course. You don't have to do the 3 hours all at once. I know that's a little overwhelming for teachers. You can break it apart. It's really easy. A back-to-school activity. You know, you can go through. It actually takes you into the Amazon warehouse, and you get to code the robots that move all the trays around that get you the stuff. You have a mission that you have to deliver a birthday present to your friend within a certain amount of time. It's a lot of fun, and you get to see what the Amazon warehouse looks like. We also offer a free virtual field trip you can take your class into. You get to meet with some different employees and check it out. I mean, it's really cool to see. I've gotten to go into it and stuff, and now I actually want to go to a warehouse, but you know.
I mean, this is amazing. This is what we're talking about. This is the opportunity that's right at our fingertips.
Mhm.
It's an hour live. I mean, this is happening in my life.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic, and the Amazon thing is completely funded, so it's all taken care of. The ACRC Amazon Cyber Robotics Challenge is completely free. So we also, if you're at a Title I school, Amazon liked the program so much with the ACRC, they funded for Title I schools through the Amazon Future Engineer. They're underwriting 6 months to access any of our platforms. You're able to dig in deeper. So maybe you start the Amazon challenge and you really enjoy it and you're ready to dive in a little bit deeper. You've got that attention. Maybe you're ready to go ahead and dive right in. Please go ahead and check it out. The Amazon Future Engineer is an awesome way to start. Please join us for our next webinar. I'm really excited about this one also. I swear I say that with every webinar. Like I'm so excited about all of them. This one I was excited about. The next one, we're going to be joining the Solar Sisters as they build a solar oven. And so it's an actual activity. I was telling someone I'm going to probably throw my son down in the corner over here to make him listen to it too, because I want to do it with him after. So
And it's amazing. That's a great conversation starter to have. Like, I mean, my goodness, yes, that's amazing. Yes, yes, a real world project that actually probably uses you can add some sensors to it to collect data. And there's the computer science.
that's
Hashtag.
awesome. No, that's awesome. All right, so I can't say thank you enough, Dr. Jones. I really do mean it. So thank you guys for coming today. It was awesome to listen to Dr. Jones. So thank you guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Stay in touch.